In this town, there's no off-season. The news never stops, and neither do we. It's always game day in Cleveland with Andy Baskin and Daryl Ryder.
Yes, friends, it's time for another edition of It's Always Game Day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. We are brought to you by our good friends at Smiley One and Bryant, Northeast Ohio's premier heating and cooling solution. Daryl, so much to talk about. I do want to give a little insight just to anybody as a special treat for anyone that listened to us on Friday when we did the show on 92.3 The Fan. So this is an exclusive extra before we even get into the Browns and all those things are going on.
We did a 4-hour version of It's Always Game Day in Cleveland.
Except for the fact that we got into the down and dirty part of behind the scenes when it comes to radio. And I was extremely disappointed in the staff, and it still hurts to this day. And so I just want to out all of those people and if you're listening, then you'll be an insider. And if you're not listening, then you won't be an insider. And I hope that no one at the station listens. That's what I'll say. That I'll start right there. So Daryl, can we just backtrack just for a second on when we last talked on Friday? Most of the station could not stand me for an old man move that I was doing. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So because you are basically grumpy middle-aged dad guy.
Grumpy? Grumpy?
Minus the minivan. That's Jeff Phelps. But you basically detest the use of numlock on keyboards.
That's not exactly. I don't detest it.
Yeah,
I just let me explain to whatever. And if you have an Apple, I'm glad you don't know what's going on because numlock is automatic on there, right? On Apples.
Yeah, I do not on my keyboard. I do not have a numlock.
There you go. So it's such a pleasure to see your keyboard.
My little number pad there works. I don't need to press a stupid button like you do in Windows to get it to work.
There you go. Okay, so let's talk about stupid Windows then. So, but the point is that there were other people at the station that were leaving cap lock on, and that to me is a major no-no. So
that's fair. That one I'll defend you 100% fair.
Cap lock is worse than numlock.
Okay.
Will you agree with that? Will you give me a little love on that one? Okay.
I agree with you there, but I feel like numlock is essential.
Okay.
To be able to use that little keyboard.
Cap lock drives me insane. So what happens is we have a bank of computers in our newsroom that are shared by everybody, right? There's 5 or 6?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So when I sit down in the morning, when I sit down in the granola bar, which I probably shouldn't have eaten before I got in there, which is kind of gross if you ask me right now, but it's a good thing if you're not watching us on YouTube and listening to us rather than that on the Odyssey app. So what happens is when I sit down to start work every day, and for our 10 o'clock show, I'm normally there like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning for most of our shows. So just to make sure that I'm prepped and ready for any question that could possibly come. So what happens is
say that with a straight face.
Some idiots leave cap lock on. So what I do when I see the lights, I go boom, boom, not realizing which one is cap and which one is num.
Even though they say cap and num, but that's
I don't. Why bother taking time to read it? I just look at the lights, ding, 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 and everything's good. Now I don't have to worry about anything. So apparently, and I've been at this station. Well, how long have we been there, Daryl? 14 years? Almost 14 years, Daryl.
Yeah. 14 years this has been going on.
Yeah, so for 14 years, every time I sat down,
staff hates your freaking guts over this. But go
bing,
ahead.
bing. And I didn't know anything about it. No one ever said a word to me. And then on Friday, it was brought to my attention on the air, nonetheless. It's not like you could have just taken me aside and go, hey, you're driving everybody crazy by doing this. So this is a pre-pandemic dig on me, correct?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely.
So tell them what happened. Tell them what happened on the air.
So Kayla, who is just one of the sweetest human beings you will ever meet.
Oh my God, she's far from sweet. She's the devil. Devil woman.
It takes a lot to get Kayla to say something negative about anybody.
She was harsh.
But she stuffed Andy Baskin in a locker on Friday when she revealed how much the entire staff detests the fact that Baskin takes off the numlock function on all the keyboards. You know, we are
I
in a
normally
business that
only
deals with a
use it
lot
on
of
the one keyboard that I normally have. There's only 2 computers that I ever use in that newsroom.
and
So
unfortunately,
clearly,
those are the 2 computers that apparently everyone else loves to use
I
too.
guess losers. And so and so apparently I've been rubbing people the wrong way since let's see.
2011.
Yeah, 2011. But no one had the you know whats to say it to my face.
Kayla did.
And rip me behind my back like the cowards that they are.
Are you new to radio? Didn't you know that's kind of how things work in radio?
Cowards. I'm calling you all cowards for not. And then she wouldn't even. This is, you know what's even worse? She called me out on the air on it,
Yeah.
and she would not reveal the person's name that it started, the original coward.
Yeah, because I don't think it's just one singular person. I think.
Yeah, well, I'm calling all of you to your face, the ones that wouldn't say a word to me about, hey, maybe you could leave Numlock there, and I probably would have never done this again because I didn't know it was such a pet peeve for the ridiculous generation behind me. Losers.
So Keith Britton is our brand manager, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I can arrange for him to send a memo out with a gentle reminder to the staff not to turn Numlock off on the keyboards.
Why? Why can't the rule be turn Numlock off, turn it on when you need it? That's the way it should be.
No.
Yes. Evan O'Brien, pop in, please.
This part
our amazing producer
thing right here.
If you're even, thank you, Evan. Can you break the tie here on the podcast about Numlock?
I'm not gonna lie, I've never really used Numlock all that much.
Boom! Thank you. That's why this guy is an amazing producer. Amazing.
So what Evan's telling you is he's really boring.
He's an Apple guy.
He just likes to use the top rail. He has no use for the side number pad.
I use the top rail. That's all I do is use the top rail. Why? Who cares?
Because you're like middle-aged dude. Like that the whole point of having the thing on the side is so you don't have to use the top. It's faster.
Why is it so hard? In years before, we had typewriters. We didn't have numbers on the side.
Yeah, I know. And y'all didn't know how to use those back then anyway either.
Oh! So just to stick it to everybody that's been talking crap about me behind my back, I now go through, and please do not make this the promo for the show because then everyone will know.
By the way, Evan, please do make this
secret
the promo for the show. Go ahead.
This is a promo secret that I now will walk through the newsroom and turn Numlock off on every computer except the one person who sits in there that I truly respect, Jeff Thomas. I will not touch his computer.
Yeah, Jeff might.
So all the other computers back there now, you guys can stick it because I'm going to turn Numlock off every computer every time I walk by it.
You're just such an angry middle-aged man. You really are. Just really spiteful.
I'm not spiteful.
Clearly you are.
Daryl, anyone that's listening for football right now is like, these 2 idiots suck, and I can't stand listening to them anymore. Well, all right, so let's get into the headlines right now. What's going on with offensive coordinator?
Well, they interviewed Clint Kubiak on Monday.
How'd that go?
Last year was the New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator. He and Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees is the current tight ends coach, who I think Mike Vrabel might have his eyes on. Of course, if you have lived under a rock and have not heard, I know this news is going to shock everybody, but Mike Vrabel's the new head coach of the New England Patriots. Nobody saw that coming the moment they decided to pass on the Mayo. And yes, that's an airplane reference. So you don't remember Hold the Mayo, Baskin?
Yeah, there's a whole Mayo. Who does the
Mayo
quarterback that's doing them? Who's the quarterback that's doing the Mayo commercials right now?
I don't know who's doing the Mayo commercials right now. Are you a Mayo guy, by the way?
Light, very, very light Mayo. I'm not a huge. I like Mayo. Andrew Siciliano is on the show all the time. Calls it the. It is a pox on the face of the earth. That's what he calls it. It's a pox.
So
I'm assuming that's like a zit or a boil, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chicken pox. Yeah.
Pox.
So my 2 leaders in the clubhouse to be the Browns' next offensive coordinator are Tommy Rees and Clint Kubiak.
Okay.
Of course, Stefanski and Kubiak, they had a little overlap in Stefanski's time with the Minnesota Vikings. Basically, Stefanski runs a variation of the Kubiak offense. So I think that either one of those guys would be the perfect fit. Other candidates, you're looking at, quarterback coaches and quote unquote passing game coordinator types. Daryl Bevel who was the Miami Dolphins quarterbacks coach, Charles London, Seattle's quarterback coach.
Do you know the Cleveland tie to Bevel?
I'm sure I've heard it, but go ahead and tell the folks.
Bevel is a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and his mission was in Cleveland.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that he went to John Carroll University along with the rest of the national.
No. Religious aspect to this too, yes, but no. Isn't that interesting?
And religion is still not going to save the Browns. As I had to explain earlier this year to Jameis Winston after he was hoping God would deliver him from pick sixes. I had to explain to Jameis, God's not a Browns fan.
Is REM then?
I don't. I'm going to say they're probably not.
So they have lost their religion, or they haven't?
Yeah. I like it. Very well done by you.
Thank you. Not too bad for an old man, huh?
Yeah, not bad. Nice reference there. Kevin Koger, who is the Falcons tight ends coach.
Oh, that's
is also amongst the candidates here. So I kind of feel like that we're going to have a resolution to this week. That's just my gut. Because I don't know how much deeper of a dive you need to do to pick.
Well, I'm going to bring up a question when we come back in the next break. I also want to talk about Deshaun Watson. What is the difference in anybody that hire? You're going to answer that question when we come back. It's always game day in Cleveland. It's always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. We're brought to you by Smiley One and Bryant, Northeast Ohio's premier heating and cooling solution. Daryl, so I asked you in the first segment, as you listed off a bunch of names, including Kubiak, as a possible offensive coordinator. Why is that so hard for a guy that's played in the NFL? And I've heard his name pretty much since between him and his dad for my entire life, Kubiak. So what is the difference between all of these guys they may be interviewing, and how important is it that they hire someone who wants to or doesn't want to call plays?
Well, I think Kevin Stefanski, because they got the mulligan for this past season, I think Kevin's got to go back to calling plays. Like, he's got to go back to doing what they did before, because let's be honest about it. The offense ran fine from 2020 to 2013, right? Now, there were circumstances involving quarterbacks that maybe didn't have it running potentially as efficiently as maybe Stefanski would like, but it ran fine. It was productive. Whereas this past year under Ken Dorsey, they just basically took a wrecking ball to it and it didn't function. So I think that it'll be important for Kevin, especially if his job is going to be on the line this year. Because I kind of feel like he's going to go into 2025 on that seat a little bit. Same thing with Andrew Berry, right?
Sure.
I mean, you're not going to tolerate back-to-back sub-5 victory seasons like that. That just can't happen, right? So I feel like if there's going to be some accountability this coming year, right? Because I don't necessarily believe that the Ken Dorsey thing was completely his idea. And so I don't know that you can hold Kevin accountable for that just being the unmitigated disaster and train wreck that it was, right? So I think that going back to what I like to call the Alex Van Pelt model, where the offensive coordinator is, in a way, an offensive coordinator in name only. They're not calling the plays. That's Stefanski. It's Stefanski's offense. Yes, they have input into play design and things like that, and game plan and prepping the quarterbacks, prepping the offense during the week. But like on game day, it's Kevin Stefanski's show, right? And I think that that's what it needs to go back to, because I kind of feel like when Kevin gave up play calling, right? Remember that whole press conference where I think that was his bleep it moment, right? Like, hey, I didn't ask for this guy to be here. I don't even want this guy here, but he got pushed on me. The offense stinks. I'm not going to wear it. He can wear it. So he can call the plays. He can deal with it.
But at that point, he absolutely positively knew that as long as he kept the team together and didn't cause any major problems, it was still his job for next year.
Right.
There's just no way. There's no way a coach would do that unless they knew they were 100% secure in coming back. Yeah.
Right. So like I said, I feel like that was Kevin's bleep it moment. Like, whatever, like, you wanted this guy here. It's a disaster. Then let's just, I'm just going to watch it, go off the rails. Right. So, and that's why, like, during games, and I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts, Andy, we're like, one of Kevin's biggest strengths has been, like, he doesn't tip his hand, right?
Never.
You
Never.
Don't see emotion from him. And I know that that's a point of contention for some Browns fans, They're like, well, why doesn't Kevin ever show any emotion or things like that?
Hmm.
Well, what happened is when he gave up play calling, right? And just things got really, I would argue things got worse when Ken Dorsey started calling plays. Like you saw on the sideline, the WTF moments, right?
Too many of them. Yes.
And the looks,
especially when he didn't have a play card in front of him at the end of the year.
Right. And
Right?
like Stefanski, like it felt like every game Stefanski had a WTF look on his face at least 1 or 2 times a game. Like, and then he's just like, yeah, my hands are clean. This ain't my circus. Right. So I tried to be the team guy. I tried to give up play calling. I tried to empower the guy that I didn't want here in the first place. So this is what you get. So I feel like, so like Tommy Rees, here's the thing about Tommy Rees, which is really interesting. The tight ends coach. One, Vrabel worked really closely with him during the offseason,
Right,
and during training camp, and even the early part of the season before Vrabel had to become the de facto offensive line coach late in the year.
Mhm.
Is that, they formed a pretty good relationship there. And like in NFL circles, Tommy Rees is very highly thought of. Like he is thought of as, I don't want to say like he's the next Sean McVay type of guy, but he is on that upward trajectory where there are folks in the NFL that feel like he's a head coach in waiting, and the last box he needs to check on the resume is
OC.
success as an offensive coordinator. And
Sure.
like once he's able to do that, boom, he's going to find himself with one of 32 jobs in the National Football League. So that's why Tommy Rees really, I think, intrigues me as well. First of all, I think he's a really good coach. Look at what he did with David Njoku. Look at Jordan Akins and the development we saw from Jordan Akins this year, right?
Right.
So I think Tommy's a really good coach, and this is an interesting opportunity for him potentially. But also, too, like with Clint Kubiak, who's the son of Gary Kubiak, who, basically devised what is a major influence on Stefanski's offense, right? There's like natural synergy between those two, right?
Right.
It marries seamlessly together, and you're not going to have Kevin, in the middle of a season being like, well, bleep this, he can call the plays, I'm washing my hands of this disaster. Or what you're not going to have a repeat of that. So that's why those are my top 2 guys. I really think too, when you're talking about some of these position coaches, Koger from the Falcons, who coaches their tight ends, London and Bevel, both of those guys are quarterbacks coaches. I don't know, maybe, something happens where those guys become available and you can hire one of them to be a quarterbacks coach. Because remember, Kevin said at the end of season press conference that yes, we got the new offensive line coach last week, but he would be considering hiring a pure quarterbacks coach for this, in addition to an offensive coordinator. Because remember, he had that early on, and then AVP kind of absorbed those responsibilities too, where AVP was like the OC/QB coach. So I think it would be smart for Stefanski to have, I think he could go either way. I don't have, I'm not like, I don't have a, I'm not like dug in either way. If you want Kubiak or whomever you hire to be your OC to double as the quarterback's coach, like I don't have a problem with that. And also at the same time, I do see the advantages of just bringing in a pure quarterbacks coach to that position. So that too will be something interesting to watch. But my gut tells me by the end of this week, we're going to have a new offensive coordinator for the Browns, but he's going to have a similar role that Alex Van Pelt had before they let AVP.
Any chance it's Alex Van Pelt?
If you're AVP, why would you come back though? I mean, I'll be honest with you.
I agree with you.
I've not heard his name. I've not heard AVP yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that like can't happen or won't happen or whatever. I've not heard his name pop up yet. But if I'm AVP, I would not want to come back.
No, I don't know that I would either, but you never know. Sometimes money talks, and sometimes a good relationship between a head coach and a coordinator or any other person they have on it, or the opportunity to be elevated. Sometimes that happens, I think the hardest thing for front office people
here, Andy. That's why, like,
right. So no, and I don't blame. I mean, I get it, but I do think sometimes people realize they make mistakes when they let someone go. I think that happens all the time. The question is who has the clarity and the self-reliance to take a job, to return to a place where you got let go in a bad, and two, to have an ownership group that would be willing to do that, to be able to say, you know what, we made a mistake. Because we all know no one wants to admit that they ever made a mistake. I do all the time. It is a daily occurrence. Just ask my wife and kids.
Right? I appreciate how you've kind of turned this podcast into the Andy Baskin's confessional.
It is. It feels good.
Do your conscience
forgive me, Daryl, for I have made a mistake?
No, it's forgive me for I have sinned. That's
no. There's a difference. Neither are mistakes. They're not sins.
Oh, gotcha.
Thank you for asking, though.
Okay, gotcha.
Just want to make sure.
Hey, mistakes can be sins, though. Remember that.
Mistakes can be sins. That's true. Okay.
And some of your mistakes are absolutely premeditated. You went on the record today.
Is it a sin to turn Numlock off?
I think that is a sin against your fellow man.
Yeah, I think you are wrong. Right or wrong. That's who you are. All right, let's come back. I want to talk about Deshaun Watson, his injury. And is there any dome update? You're going to fill us in on that because I heard some clamoring a little bit. So let's talk about that when we come back. It's always game day in Cleveland. It is always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. We are brought to you by Smiley One and Bryant, Northeast Ohio's premier heating and cooling solution. All right, Daryl. First of all, I know we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson and the re-injury. I think everybody knows what's going on with that for the most part. We'll dive into that in a second and get into the nuts and bolts. Anything new on the dome? And can you help me? Like, I don't understand any of the county Browns relationship. Help me.
It's not good. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Also, the relationship between the Browns and the city of Cleveland, also not very good. But
does it have to be not good?
Well, I mean, from a business standpoint, yeah, because they need to come to some sort of equitable agreement for everybody to, to move things forward here. The Browns are absolutely committed to getting Brook Park done. They have begun the process to officially acquire that land. They exercised the option, the purchase option that they secured about this time last year. For that 176 acres. And then, look, I mean, Chris Ronayne and county executives and Mayor Justin Bibb and Cleveland City Council, they remain unmoved in their particular positions that if the Browns move to Brook Park, it is a violation of the Modell law. And they want to invoke that and force the Browns to remain playing games within the city of Cleveland, which means the only place they can play in Cleveland right now is the existing stadium. The Burke Lakefront Airport plan that they have thrown out is their Hail Mary, as I like to call it. I just don't think it's feasible. It's certainly more expensive by $1 billion to $2.5 billion more, depending when the construction would occur. I don't think that the airport's getting closed tomorrow, so that land isn't going to be available for a while, which means then you have to spend even more money on top of just constructing that dome. The existing stadium still needs to be fixed up. There are major problems with it, which has led the Browns to where they are. But nothing's really changed.
And the county would probably be on the hook for having to put more money into Cuyahoga County Airport because they would need an emergency runway, right?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, the study that was done to close Burke Lakefront Airport actually was pretty revealing. Because when you're closing an airport, and it was actually the city of Cleveland who put out the study. Their contention is that there are enough facilities in the region to be able to handle what is currently the responsibilities of Burke Lakefront Airport in regards to air traffic, whether it's Cuyahoga County Airport, whether it's Medina, Kent State's airport was
Lost Nation, Akron, Canton,
Lost Nation, Akron, Canton. So, I don't think Akron Canton works because it's so far away. Akron Canton's, depending where you are, it's anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour away from the Cleveland metro area. But
in air, it's like 5 minutes away.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying, as far as accessibility. So, Bibb does want to close Burke. That's very apparent, and that's why those studies were released in September. Also, they got an extra $69 million from the federal government to help construct the land bridge from the Mall C out to the lakefront. So you're talking north of $150+ million in grant money for Route 2 and the land bridge has been committed from the federal government to reshape that lakefront, which is great. I mean, regardless if the Browns stay on the lakefront or not, you need the land bridge, right? The only way to get to the lakefront is to walk down the sidewalk on East 9th Street at this point. Even the bridge that goes across everything from the stadium and connects on Al Lerner Way and goes downtown, like that thing is something I don't remember if it's still open. I know there have been times where it's been closed for safety reasons and stuff like that.
The other thing is, Daryl, let's be super honest. I mean, between Burke and the pit, there's the Voinovich Park that's over there, it's Voinovich Park, isn't it? Is that, I think that little name of it?
Yeah, the pier.
And then Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Science Center, and that's it. If the stadium's gone, that's it. So they need to develop down there. And by the way, can we use the water?
Yeah, I mean, and then that's the other thing too. It's like, okay, so if the Browns leaving Cleveland is such a detriment to downtown businesses, then why are the closest downtown businesses a mile away on West 6th Street? Right? What let's be, my whole argument with the politicians has been that let's be genuine about our conversations instead of just trying to make cheap political points and get in front of cameras and microphones and say, well, that dog ain't gonna hunt and all this other kind of stupid stuff. Like, let's be genuine about the discussion, because when you're talking about $1.2 billion in potential taxpayer contribution, whether that's through bonds, writing a check, tax increment financing for the complex, whatever, like that's a substantial commitment, right? They had no problem doing Dan Gilbert's $3.5 billion riverfront project.
True.
Right. And that's going to include like premium housing. They're not building housing for poor people for that. And I do think that there's some competition there, because you got that development. You would have the Brook Park development.
You're saying basically you're kind of saying between the Cavs and the Browns, there's
right. And then let's not forget the Browns Berea development too, because that's going to include some apartments and housing there as well, next to Cross Country campus. So like I do think that there's a legitimate discussion to be had of, can this market support all of these new developments that are popping up? The developments are great, but I do feel like there is a conversation to be had. But again, my frustration is I don't feel like the conversations are genuine. I don't feel, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like that the politicians are coming from, a genuine place. They're just trying to create sound bites for TV and things like that. And I don't think that solves the problem for anybody. But their position remains unchanged when it comes to what they want to see happen. They're dead set against Brook Park. The Browns want Brook Park to happen. The state of Ohio is frustrated with this particular region and the politicians up here.
What does the state want? What do you think the state wants?
They want a unified vision.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want, hey, well, the politicians want this, which is the Browns to stay in the existing stadium, right? And the Browns want to build the dome. And the politicians of Columbus like, well, can you pick a project? We can't get behind and put any legislation or any money behind. The other thing too is like the syntax. You don't need to raise the syntax money. Like, what you need to do is you need to add marijuana into it. And then I think the other thing you can do is you can expand the syntax beyond Cuyahoga County, have it be the bordering counties. So include.
But don't the other counties have to vote on that?
Right. I understand that, but before you can even get that point, it's got to go through Columbus. So you got to add, Lake, Portage, Summit, Medina, and I'm having a brain cramp out to the west.
Geauga.
Well, not Geauga. It's to the west of us.
Lorain
County. Thank you.
Sorry.
So those are the county. Like, if you bring all those counties in, now all of a sudden I think you would have plenty of money to cover the expenditures.
Yeah, but if I'm living in Lorain County and I'm not seeing any of that money coming back at me, why would I vote for it?
Because your citizens are the ones coming into Cleveland to go to the games. That's why. That's the problem, is that Browns, Cavs, and Guardians fans are not just in Cuyahoga County. They're coming in, from
I understand that, but
and Mentor, and
maybe there's a different way to tax them, because I can't see anybody in their right mind in Lake County saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for tax me on stuff when there's no new property, there's no new building, there's no new nothing going on in Lake County. Why would you do that?
Well, and let's not act like the sin tax or whatever. So the sin tax is 34.5 cents per pack of cigarettes. And
here's what I think. Somehow or another, you'd have to attach that to Rita, wouldn't you?
Right. And then for a 12-ounce bottle of beer, it's a penny and a half. So let's not act like the sin tax is like this massive tax. Like, okay, you're paying an extra penny for a bottle of beer, right?
I'm done. I'm not drinking ever again now.
Right. So it's 15 cents for a 12-pack of beer. That's really not, it's not like it's $1.50 or $2 or, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a very nominal tax. So I feel like that there's a way to do this, because let's be honest about it. We've talked about it on the podcast too. There are challenges right now with Gateway, where the Guardians and Cavaliers play, and maintaining those buildings as well. Yes, both of them just got renovations. Guardians is still underway at Progressive Field. But I mentioned, so if you renovated the existing stadium, it's $1 billion to $1.2 billion, right? Right. But then not only do you have that project, but you have also too, over the course of a potential new lease of 20, 25, 30 years, you've got another $700 to $800 million in capital improvements that you have to deal with over the course of that lease, right?
Right.
It's like the folks that are saying, well, they're just, they're dumping it in between capital repairs and renovation, $435 million into Progressive Field. What do they need even more money for? Well, because there's other stuff in that ballpark that's not being touched, that's going to need to be repaired or replaced going forward. And the same thing goes for Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, which got, I think it was $185 million facelift a couple years ago, right? There's other stuff in that building that needs to be maintained and eventually replaced and things like that. So that's the challenge here. And I think that they would be smart to come up with an entity that all three stadiums, whether it's the current stadium that the Browns play in or it's the new Dome in Brook Park, are tied in with Gateway, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and Progressive Field, to where all of it's in one entity, and then it just makes the distribution of sin tax revenue and all that.
Like the Regional Sports Authority or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. All right, Daryl, we ran out of time, man.
That's what's got to happen right now. But I don't
space now.
Yeah, I don't think the politicians are willing to have those type of conversations right now. They just want to do the Spider-Man meme. The Haslams are horrible people, and we're not going to stand for this. And, so, and then the other component too is we got to wait and see what, the federal court rules in regards to the Modell law. And actually they got to have a hearing first. And I don't even have an idea when that's going to actually take place, hopefully sooner rather than later, so they can get that whole thing.
More red tape. All right, we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson in the next edition of It's Always Game Day in Cleveland. He still has a ruptured Achilles.
Again.
That's the news. Yeah, again. We'll talk about the implications of that in the next one. Daryl, excellent show today. As always, you were so on Friday when we were live on the air. Just want to make sure you know that so you don't feel good about yourself.
You're a knucklehead.
I want to tear you down and then bring you back up. That's how things roll. Evan O'Brien, you're the greatest. Thank you. We appreciate you. You're a great producer. And if anyone else tells you anything different, well, then we'll just smack them in the face.
And please make Andy Baskin's confessional the promo, please. Thank you very much.
Do not make my confessional the promo. But if people want to listen to it, I'm okay. It's always game day in Cleveland.